Welcome to the College of Complexes. This is our 441st meeting since we started in February 2009. We put a speaker on every week, a different subject. We require a speaker to take a position on an issue or express a point of view. They have to be for or against something. We don't care what it is. We give them an hour to make a presentation, up to an hour. If they go over an hour, we cut them off. If anybody interrupts the speaker, we remind the interrupter we listen to only one fool at a time. It's one of our rules. Then we have questions and answers from the audience of the speaker, not speeches. Then we have remarks, rebuttals. Everyone in this audience that wants to gets 5 minutes at the podium to respond to the speaker said for or against. Our speaker gets the last word, gets a comment, and close the meeting. But before we put it on our speaker, we have time for announcements. Anybody have any announcements you want to make? Now's the time. None? No announcements? Sorry, I have one.
A little loud.
I don't know. I'm talking loud. Maybe that's it. But anyway, Jim Peeler, who you know, he's here often. He's in the hospital. He had a broken arm, and he's had what is it? Not kidney failure, but urine. He's got a urine bladder infection. He was in bad shape. They got him in the hospital, and now he's getting better. He's going to go to Allen, Texas after he comes out of the hospital, which will be early part of next week. And when he goes there, he says within a few weeks he might be okay. So if anybody wants to call him, he's in room 650 at Presby Hospital. Their phone number is 214-3456. I wrote it here. What is it, 34560? He's got it there.
It's 6789. 214.
Oh, you're kidding.
214.
214-345-6789.
Oh, okay. So you guys are pretty good.
Yeah, 345-6789. That's it. 214-345-6789. It's an easy number to remember. So, but that's where he's at. He's in room 650. So just remember that if you get a hold of him if you want. Any other announcements?
Who are you talking about? Peeler.
Peeler, Jim Peeler. He's in the hospital. Broken arm and bladder infection. So, and he said he lost some weight. He sounded good today, though. So that's a good sign. So he's on the mend. Anyway, our speaker next week is this week is Calvin Blue. What am I doing here? Next week is January 19th.
Curtis Mulgrew.
Curtis Mulgrew is going to talk about how to deal with attacks on democracy. I'm not going to read all this, but it's on your itinerary there. And on January 26th, we have Dr. Stephen Butler is going to talk about secular humanism. That ought to bring some distinction about it.
That'll bring me out.
That'll bring some people out. And some to be for and against. Anyway, it should be enlightening. And that's, so if you're for or against what he has to say, you'll be here.
Tell them you're soliciting speakers.
Oh, I'm always looking for speakers. So if somebody wants to be a speaker, let me know. You know, it's a constant solicitation. We have to keep this thing going. Anyway, if you want to be a speaker, let me know. We'll give you a free dinner, you and your guest, and that's what we do. So anyway, our speaker tonight is Calvin Bluett. He's a government professor at Cedar Valley College. He's going to discuss how Barack Obama, America's first African-American president, stood in the Chicago Grant Park on November 4th, 2008, with a challenge to our country. If there's anyone out there who still wonders if the dream of our founders is alive in our time, who still questions the power of democracy, tonight is your answer. Yet today, our nation is still an imperfect union bound by the belief that we can do better. Today, President Trump emboldens polarization and division rather than bringing our nation together. His iteration following the Charlottesville debacle actually exacerbated hate in America. Today, he continues to embolden hate. Calvin argues that the core of the hate in America stems from racism, but we must move beyond that hate if our nation is to realize its potential. Calvin further argues that hate is not new in America, it just seems to be more open. During the 1960s, following the Civil Rights Movement, the university community advanced the term political correctness as a tool to discourage people from expressing their hate. President Obama's election in 2008 led nationalistic groups to openly manifest their hate, and the demonization of President Obama's administration by the Republican Party created an environment for Donald Trump to be elected president in 2018. Kelvin contends that we as a nation must work to find common ground. If we are not successful in this endeavor, we will lose our representative democracy. He concludes that if reasonable Americans work together, we will be able to enhance and save our representative democracy. Without further ado, please give a very, very warm welcome to Kelvin Ouellette.
Okay, don't trip on wires here.
I'm very careful of that. Jim had a fall, and
Yes.
Oh, he did?
my brother had a fall, and we lost him, but he was 91.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness.
So, but we, as a family, we feel blessed. When he died, we had ranged in age from 74 to 91. And
How many?
it was 9 to start
Wow.
with, 9 of us, and one sister died when I was a baby, and the sister was just older than I, died in 2002 in August.
Wow.
So we haven't had many funerals, and we're afraid that we're going to have many when the first one started dying, because the longest span between my younger brother and I is 3.5 years, and the rest of them were 1.5 to 2 years. So, large
Lots
family.
of cousins, right?
What's that?
And a lot of cousins?
Oh, a lot of cousins. But I mean, the first cousins, they really died. We had maybe 70 something, and we have family reunion. We probably don't have 20.
Wow. Wow.
But we old. Been here forever. Okay. I thought a lot about this because Time Magazine had 2 articles. And one was dealing hate in America, and the other one's how do we move beyond hate. The New Republic magazine had one dealing something connected with this, with racism in America. And so I looked at those, and I was thinking about when President Obama was elected president, we had a high ratio of hate groups couples developed, and because many people felt that an African American should be president. Now, I thought by his election, I felt the same way when he ran for election. I didn't support him initially because I worked the 5 southwestern states in the United States: Arkansas, Louisiana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. And I didn't see, but none of those states, he didn't win a plurality in any of those 5 states. So he didn't carry any of them when he ran for president. So I think hate is a very strong word. And when you hate someone, it hurts you more than it hurts them, unless you kill them or do something to them. Most people just hate in this character, in this system. And then some people act on the hate, and that's what it brings harm to other people, like we've seen a great deal with guns recently. I have, one of the things I want to focus on is what causes hate in America. And as Tom read, it really started in this country stemming from the residual of slavery in African Americans, and also American Indians. They demonized American Indians as they were savage, they were inhuman, and this kind of thing. And it is the same thing with slaves and African Americans in the United States. So the first thing that I think about hate or racism, children are not born with these kind of attitudes. They are taught these kind of attitudes. They are taught by their parents. that they are, and in our Constitution somewhat gives, the early Constitution, we call it the 3/5 Compromise, which meant that African Americans were 3/5 of a white American. And there's a great compromise in the Constitution because the South wanted to count the slaves for representation, for not for taxation. And the compromise was you count them both 3/5 for both taxation and representation. Then the Scott decision added to that when it said African Americans in the United States free or in slavery had no rights that white men had to respect. And then we know that we've had experience when Hayes was elected president, they worked out something to remove the troops from the South. Then we had the Plessy decision, which came up with a separate equal doctrine, which emboldened states in the South to pass what they call black codes, de jure laws. And that was creating a real problem. So we are, in my research I looked at, they have been doing research on this in the United States. Can it be cured? And there's two paradigms that we use. One, with two ladies. One grew up in an affluent community in California. You know, you think about all the good things California do, but they have some of the strongest hate groups in California than anywhere else in the country. And but she lived in a community where everybody looked. She defined her parents as polite racists. Polite racists don't ever use terms, and they don't really condemn anyone who does, but they just don't think you ought to say anything about it. But it's inbred. And she went on and grew up to be a lady, and she and another girlfriend was out, and they ran into gentlemen's, and they were actually members of the Ku Klux Klan, and they blindfolded them and took them to where they meet, and they drove around in circles, so she described it. And then her training had not prepared her to deal with the kind of language, the derogatory term language they were using. But later on, she and the guy got married and had children, and he was abusive, and she left him. And he was, she went back so he couldn't find her. And but she had a desire not to get away from racism in her mind. But the researchers say it affects a person's brain, and to really overcome it, it's almost like overcoming alcohol or drugs. It takes a lot of effort, and they really have to be committed to it. Otherwise, well, she met, and she's a beautician. She worked in a beauty shop where it was very diverse, and she found that the African American young women that worked there was just like she was, and she didn't understand why she carried. But even if she saw a white woman and a black man, or a black white man and a black woman, the feeling surfaced. And it was just, that's how hard it was. Another one was similar experience in growing up, but she was caught in a burglary and she went to prison. And that was her first time interacting with African American people. And I don't know, she must have been gay because she had another lady was a friend, an apartment. But still, there's a program that's funded to try to help people move away from that. They want to, but you have to be more than just say, I want to do it, because it does take a lot of effort to get through it. So I think it's not good for parents to teach their children to behave. My parents taught me that I was no worse and no better than nobody else. And that's kind of the way I looked at it. And I think it would be better to do that, because if they want to get away from it, it will create a great deal of anxiety, because sometimes they feel they get away from their family or get away from things like that. So there's a lot of emotions. So it's taught, it's learned. It's not, you're not born. Another major cause is fear and misunderstanding. Many of the people who supported President Trump live in fear and definitely misunderstanding. And when you're that way, you believe what you sound simple. Building a wall, stop everything, the drugs and people coming in. That sounds simple, but it won't solve the problem. The research said the majority of people come with drugs come through with cars and airplanes and get all that stuff here. And the truth of the matter is, many of the people who get the drugs into the United States are businessmen, affluent businessmen who can get it here, and it's not the wall does not have nothing to do with it. And so, but it sounds simple, and because the fear that they instill in people that they're taking your jobs, and with the job situation we have right now, you can understand that. But another thing when you teach our children, you got to think for yourself. You can't let someone else tell you what to think. And it really starts at home. So fear and misunderstanding is a big problem. And based on the research, the three articles I read, there's a desire in America right now among the hate groups to have an all-white nation. And so that's when they were marching in Charlottesville, Virginia, they said Jews will not replace us. Jews will not replace us. I thought Jews had arrived. I know they have had similar problems that, out of slavery in Egypt that we have. My parents and great parents had in the United States, similar problems still exist. So that's another thing. And sometimes in the research also in other areas show that when people feel threatened, they have a stronger propensity to blame someone else for it. And so that's what to do. Insecurity. There are a large number of people who are insecure. I had a coworker who had a son that was born with issues. And he had to have someone that he thought was worse than he. And that's insecurity. When you're not secure in yourself, you've got to find someone that you can think is worse than you are. And that's what this insecurity thing is. So a great number, and they say we're better than African Americans. They look at what was in the Constitution, they look at the Scott decision, they look at the Plessy decision, they look at the laws that were passed, separate but equal laws and things like that, but separate were never equal, and they can reasonably come to that conclusion. A nation where we have a class system. A class system is really what we have in the United States. The planners use race and other minority groups to get you projected on something else while they go and do what they want to do. And that's what happens. President Trump's feeling about immigrants coming in and that kind of thing, and some of his own organizations employ illegal people because it's economical. And so the class system is really is the driving factor. And they use race and Muslims and gays and lesbians and things like that as to get people to refocus them, project something on someone else. So let me turn this off.
Probably Tom. Where are you?
I was just looking to see if Tom was here. Okay, sorry for that interruption. So that's the things that really do. The new faces of American hate groups. The new faces of American hate groups are now more likely to be college educated and internet trolls, step-in skinheads instead of robes or hoods. They favor natty suits and balanced sneakers with white polio and khaki pants. They double at ALT right. These groups organize online, delight in running coded forms of communication. Among the new racist rights, inspiration will often come from European faces group like the Golden Dawns of Greece, the neo-Nazis movements, and the Russian philosopher Alexander Dugin, a close ally of President Putin. Their aim is directed at what they see as the dwindling fortune of the white working class in America. The same group has issued a national white baby challenge, arguing that increasing Caucasians' fertility is the best way to fight black ghetto culture. Further, they believe that whites are losing out because of affirmative action and policies. And that's troubling to me, because if you look at the ratio of African Americans, the ratio of them in fairly decent jobs is far less. And actually other groups do better in affirmative action. Affirmative action was not designed the way it's used in most places. Most companies used it in a way that it wouldn't be successful. The government, the agencies that work, they used it. They would hire someone that they would presume was not equipped for the job, and just so it wouldn't work. They pointed, and then we got reverse discrimination cases brought that was won, and so that's really that's really not true. The other thing is power. In Texas, the majority of people are not the historical majority. Latinos and African Americans, the two groups is more, by 52% of the state. And in California, the Latinos and white Americans, the same ratio. And so whites, according to statistics, are not replacing themselves. And in the African American community, if it wasn't for the poor, we wouldn't be replacing ourselves, because when we become middle class, we don't want but two, a girl and a boy. And I wanted a girl and a boy, but I got two girls at one time and already had a boy, so I couldn't send her back. And keep her. And so, but the greatest joy of my life has been those twin daughters. They thought I was God, and I thought they were dolls, and we didn't. You know, academically they do good. One's a nurse, and another has a PhD in physics. And son finished college, but he still doesn't know what he wants to do. But that's the situation we have right now. It's power, because I don't know how many of you work with Latinos. I work with Latinos a great deal from 68 to 94, from the border to the valley, in other states in the 5-state region. Once they achieve 45%, they want to control it. And it was a recent phenomenon in a small community in South Texas, where we had an issue when they were not, in South Texas for many years, the Latinos were majority, but they didn't hold political offices. But now they hold most of them, because they became wise to that. So, another thing for the former governor, Strom Thurmond, South Carolina, addressed a group inside the University of Virginia, Campbell Hall, in Charlottesville, Virginia, attacking President Truman's civil rights program, was one that included anti-lynching legislation and protection against racial discrimination and harm. He wasn't for that. So Strom Thurmond denounced the move towards racial justice, said that such measures would undermine the American way of life and no other Bills of Rights. And Thurmond was in his element during this presentation, an old Confederate, and stating that there is not enough troops in the armed forces to force the Southern people to break down segregation for African Americans, which led to the formation of the Dixiecratic Party. You may remember that in 1952, the Dixiecratic Party strong-armed, and that's why everybody predicted Truman would win, because it was in the South, it was pretty powerful. But Truman won anyway. In 1948, Minneapolis Mayor Hubert Humphrey, some of you recall him, called to the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia to walk into the sunshine of human rights. Strom Thurmond was there, and his fellow segregation marched out of the hall and later established the Dixiecratic Party. Hate will be with us, but it need not to become the defining factor, feature of the given area. Presidents in the 1990s took the high road, stemming from the bombing of the federal building in Oklahoma, leading to leaders from both political parties. One of the things I want to point out, in the South, particularly in Texas, Republicans were always pretty good people. They worked with African Americans in single districts and a number of other things. And I have a hard time seeing the big shift. The only thing I can come up was the Democrats realign with the Republican Party, and they're still preaching the same sermon. And I think that's pretty much what's happening. So when we had the bombing of the federal building in Oklahoma City, my coworkers and I, we went to lunch, and they said it was some foreigner that did it. And I just said, well, you better be careful. It may be an American. It wasn't a former Marine that did that. So that's one thing. When it was bombed, President Clinton, he talked about, he didn't focus on the demonizing people, but focus on our better instincts, of what we should be doing, and rather than what that's so that's part of the situation here. I'm gonna stick to my script. So this leads me to the main question. How President Trump, my point is that his focus emboldens hate groups. They feel that he is one of them. And so all of his iteration, they take to it hard. And I'm afraid what they will do if they feel that the nation is treating President Trump wrong. His radical emboldened current hate white groups historically. Some of the former president articulate have been to unify the nation rather than divide it. They preach the American gospel about freedom, justice, immigration, and ambition. They invoke enduring values in the service of both political parties to achieve goals and healing wounds. However, this is not President Trump's agenda. Rather than stimulating our better conscience, his rhetoric exacerbates polarization and division between his political base and other rational Americans. Thus, his perception is the world is not a community. The world is not a community. Rather, it is a business. President Trump believes if you're not winning, you're losing. President Trump's perception is to keep confusing and polarizing America. The preceding perception was used by white segregationists during the civil rights movement to demonize African Americans and other minorities, which enabled them to get elected to political office, particularly in southern parts of America. The governor of Alabama that was shot, he ran as a kind of a moderate person the first time in Alabama, and he lost miserably. And his iteration after then, he will never be out inward, and he never was. And he won the governor time after time until he was shot. And then he was won it once after he was shot. So that has been a tool that I thought was gone, but it's still there. The Americans will have to look beyond elsewhere for moral leadership and practical guidance across the divide. White nationalist leaders Richard Spencer vowed to return to Charlottesville. He stated that there was no way in hell that I'm not going back. While the former Klan's leader, David Duke, praised President Trump for his honesty, thus rational Americans must focus on our past history and the future. Throughout our history, America has run on the voltage generator by competing ideas, the enduring debate over the proper balance between liberty and security, equality and opportunity, individual rights, and the common good, and that no king will ever dictate to an American's belief system for rational Americans. President Trump defended the Charlottesville gathering, legitimized a hateful ideology. Throughout President Trump's business career, he has used racial and ethnic division to his advantage. His iteration has legitimized and revitalized white national movements. And the research shows that you have more movements and organizations and hate groups in his tenure, during his time, than we did when President Obama was elected president. He views by these people, by these groups, as God sent, since he speaks their language. He demonized the Latinos and Muslims. They like that. President Trump's behavior marks a major break from traditional Republican conservatives for generations. Most Republicans labor to maintain a distance from party extremists. President Trump should lead by the paradigms of some of the other presidents as followed. George Washington, he was a slave owner. He freed a slave when he died. But he set a framework for governance, which makes him one of the most important presidents we've had. President Lincoln, under his measure, saved the Union and freed the slaves, which was a major accomplishment. President Wilson, in his words, liberty both in law and conscience to be as big as a man as he can. And President Roosevelt, his action, he issued an executive order to integrate companies that had government contracts as far as the race thing, but the bigger thing, he put in policies that helped reduce unemployment in the United States. He didn't completely do it with World War II finished it all, but he worked with our allies and won World War II, and so Mrs. Roosevelt had a great deal to do with it, I think, but he was dealing with what we say our values are. President Truman, you can't divide the country up into sections, and you can't encourage people's prejudice. You must appeal to the people's best instincts and issue an executive order integrating the armed forces. That was a powerful thing. He integrated the armed forces. And he actually wanted a national health insurance program, but he felt it wasn't time. President Johnson, a native Texan, I remember his articulations during the Civil Rights Movement. He really focused on our conscience rather than inflame the negative thing. And all the civil rights legislation was enacted during his administration. So the final part is, how can we get beyond hate? I pointed out that young people who are trained to hate people, I've encountered people who grew up in homes and families taught them the way I was taught. You know better than nobody else. You shouldn't hold a whole demographic group accountable what one or two people or a small minority of people. You need to look at each individual, what they do. That's more difficult, but that's the best way to do it. And I'm convinced that they even tried to develop a pill to keep you from being racist. They could get out of it, but nothing works. The only thing that works is someone has to be 100% committed to it and do everything they're supposed to do to make it work. And it doesn't come quickly, because people that get beyond drugs, if they get in the old environment, they go back. The same thing with alcohol. So you have to keep it away from those kind of people. So you have to be, if you're an individual, then you'll do what you need to do. So I'm somewhat of a religious person. I don't wear it on my shirt sleeves, But I think all the teaching in the Bible is useful for people to get along. And I look at religion as to teach us how to get along with each other. And it teaches us that we should love each other. And that's a major tenet of religion. And that's what we need to do. So I started off, I said, how can America find a reasonable equilibrium that will check and balance the climate of division of which our current president seems to strive? We must use a civic energy not on the president's heart and mind, which seem a lost cause, but on our own. The nature of the republic is shaped by the mysterious and complicated interplays between leaders and the popular government, often mirrors as much as they mold who we are. So our leaders really represent us, and we need to recognize them. People's reflection reflects the government's how. We elect people, and the people that elect President Trump think like he does. And then the people that perhaps elected President Obama think the way he does. The first step as a reasonable citizen is that everyone should have access to political, economic, social, and spiritual and religious opportunities. We argue that America is a Christian nation. However, this is not our practice. Biblically, we are to love everyone, even our enemies. If we are a Christian nation, then we will manifest love for all people and be an advocate for everyone to be treated the same. That's the first thing, I think. The other one is leaders must come from uncountable individuals. Decision to model kindness, to fight alienation, to get offline and into the streets or the classroom or the sanctuary and help someone in trouble. We must recognize no one is coming to save us. We have to do it ourselves. Thirdly, we must recognize that most of our differences are exaggerated and fueled by uncompromising ignorance. A representative democracy cannot be ongoing if the citizens are not reasonably educated. You can't have ignorant people and have an effective representative democracy. So that's what I was going to read. We need to hold our elected officials accountable for what they say and what they do. Further, we need to prosecute people to the fullest extent of the law when they break it. We don't do that either. We must see others' struggles as our own and success as our success, so we can speak to our own common humanity. We must build a more connected society, using our resources to uplift one another, so we collectively benefit. We need to alleviate hate. And alleviating hate is durable, but it will take time, since we are trying to undo centuries of institutional and personal hatred and exclusion. This is a generational project, and we should not underestimate the power of human connection. Next, we must get serious about freedom and justice, equal opportunity, and fundamental fairness for all. And lastly, our tomorrow must be better than what it is today, and it will be challenging to get there. We will offend some people, and some people will lose friends, long-time friendship. We cannot back down in times like these. We must move forward. We got to get up off our knees after praying, wipe our eyes, and get to work. An example of the latter thing is President Johnson was very connected with Southern senators. And when he did the Civil Rights Act for or they just felt that he wasn't going to enforce it. And when he started enforcing it, he lost all of his friends. And he was very, very lonesome. But he recognized that. And when he was elected in 1994, he indicated it, because I think all the 7 states except for one voted against him, voted for Goldwater. And he said that was a price he had to pay for it. There were some stories told by President Johnson. The lady that raised the 2 daughters was an African American woman. So he sent them on train to get to the ranch. And they got into Lady Bird's home country, and they told her she couldn't sit with them on the train. And she called President Johnson to find out what she should do. So he told her to get off with the children because I want you to separate from the girls, and I'd have someone to pick you up. And someone was there. He said, if I ever get in a position to change that, I'm going to change that. And he did. So I think, we can criticize our leaders, but we have to think about ourselves. How do we contribute to it? We perhaps have more people that don't vote than do vote. And people who do vote often vote more against something than they do for something. And so those are some things we got to work with to try to deal with this. I think the hate groups, that's a dangerous thing, because I've heard iteration here that, people want the guns to fight the federal government. You don't know what the Defense Department has, and you don't have enough. But if we have another civil war, it's going to be terrible. And many people argue that no nation will defeat us, no foreign nation will ever defeat us, but we will defeat ourselves. And so that's what I'm concerned about. That's it. Questions? Yes.
Just a moment. Just a moment. Let's get a microphone to you.
Yeah, just I wanted to make sure that I heard you well. I'm not sure. Did you say America is a Christian nation?
That's where we hold ourselves up as being a Christian nation. We hold ourselves up as we probably have more people going to church than any other nation, but we don't practice it. We don't practice it. We don't practice it. We say it, but we don't practice it.
Well, you say, in summary here, if reasonable Americans work together, we will be able to enhance and save representative democracy.
Yes.
Can you name a single Republican political figure today that you think is reasonable? Oh my God.
Well, so since some of the historians, in the Civil Rights Act, when it was voted on, a large number of Republicans were.
We're not talking about them, we're talking about today.
Yeah, no, that's hard.
But we got to understand the history before we understand today. But anyway, I hate to say no, but I think the situation we have right now, the border wall, if the Senate Majority Leader, Ms. McConnell, would let it come vote, it would pass. They would pass all the appropriation bills that's not passed, and the House is going to pass them. And they don't want to pass the Homeland Security appropriation bill until they can resolve this issue about the wall. And if he would bring it up, it would pass, because some would pass in the Senate, some years ago. But they feel they like their job. And the Republican Party is owned by President Trump right now. And some gentleman spoke out against him from South Carolina, a long-time representative, and he lost in the primary. And that's what many of them feared from the Tea Parties. So, but they are to be wise enough to have some principles and say, this is right, and if I lose doing right, I will lose doing right. I don't see a lot of evidence of that right now. I hope it will change.
Calvin, you were mentioning Alabama Governor, was that George
Wallace? George Wallace. Yeah.
Okay, now in his latter time there, he actually did a formal renunciation of...
He did.
And that was Some people say that's why they shot him.
Well, that must have happened. I don't know.
Excuse me,
I
I
don't,
thought the renunciation was after they shot him.
that's what I thought too.
Yeah, it was
Okay,
after
well,
they shot him.
historical record will prove it one way or
It was
the other.
after they shot him.
Well, I indicated in the beginning, when he ran as a moderate. I don't think he was in his heart a racist, but he wanted to be elected.
He ran for president, didn't
Well,
he?
now,
Yeah, he was running for president when he got shot in Maryland.
now, were you aware that Senator Robert C. Byrd, one of the most long serving senators, was in fact at one point a KKK Grand Master?
Yep,
Yeah,
and he fathered a
yeah,
child,
yeah,
didn't
yeah, yeah. Well,
he? No, black child.
Now, what was Robert?
well, that was Strom
Oh,
Thurmond.
that was Stern.
Thurmond.
Okay, what was, yes, Strom Thurmond. Now, what was Byrd's affiliation? What party was he in?
Democrat.
Democrat Party.
Well, I indicated earlier
Yeah,
that
but
all the
Democrats
hurt to
were-
black people in the
Democrats
South
were-
was done by Democrats, not by
They were the
Republicans.
Dixiecrats.
Yeah, the Dixie
They weren't
Democrats.
like Chicago
Yeah,
Democrats.
yeah. Yeah, it was a different kind of Democrat, you know.
Yeah. they
Yeah,
were
they that's why the Voting Rights Act that the Supreme Court removed it, said that they passed what called the jury laws. These were laws that created separations of the races. In other states, they call it de facto, and it was something about tradition and custom. And so that's why most of the all the states in the South had to get clearance because of those laws. Yes.
Do I need a mic? Oh, yeah, back here.
350,000 pimple-faced white boys died in the Civil War. Was it worth it?
Well, as an African American, I'd have to say
I would
yes.
say, yeah, no,
I have to say yes. I thought it was a war that people should have been able to get out, sit around and talk it out and resolve it. But it wasn't all about slavery. It was about economics a great deal.
Yeah.
Because in the North and the East, they had to pay some people work. In the South, they paid a big price for slaves, but they didn't pay on no salary. They had barely fed them and kept them clothed. And it was an economic war. I think South Carolina, if they hadn't done what they did at Fort Sumter, we may have worked it out.
as a young man, you lived in the South, right?
Correct.
And when you were a young man and you had to travel, say from Dallas to Florida, did you have a green book?
A green book.
Do you know what that is?
I knew where to stop.
You knew where to stop.
Yeah, and
The green book,
it
you've seen the movie.
it has an effect. It affected
Yeah.
me because when we traveled, you'd have to carry your food in a brown bag.
It was,
And when I go to somewhere now,
yeah.
I hate to carry a doggy bag because it reminds me of those days.
Yeah, but you knew where to stop.
You know where to stop. Yeah,
Yeah.
you couldn't.
Gas stations,
Yeah,
hotels,
yeah,
and
yeah.
eating. Okay.
You had the book. You had that. You traveled.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm kind of embarrassed with myself.
Can you
I feel like
speak into the microphone there?
Which way? Is this on?
Hold it towards you.
Hold it up, hold it up.
There you go. Okay.
That's what it was.
I feel like I live in a bubble, and I'm sorry that I mean, I'm glad I live in the bubble. I hear about hate when I read the media, and where I come to a speech like this. When we get together with our friends, I don't hear anybody saying, I wish those other people would, blah, blah, blah. You know, we're happy when we see people succeed. We really, truly are. And it just bothers me. And I forgot what's
the question?
But the question is why,
You let take your time.
you know, I'm just wondering if it's as bad as everybody keeps saying it. It's kind of like having a little flame and you blow on it. And you just. Okay, so let me ask you a real practical question. If I'm out and about and I see some people talking, teenagers usually, I'm on dark rail bus, and I hear them use the N-word, but they're all black, so that's okay, I guess.
No, it's
I
not
understand.
okay, but they do it. We
They
do it. Yeah.
And then there's the business of calling someone, their friends, who succeed, calling them an Oreo.
Yeah, we do
If I
that
was
too.
to say, okay, I don't see the teachers, you know, so what would I do? My question is, how would I address that teenager? If I was bold enough and said, look, not gonna.
That is a hard question because I don't know how I would address it because teenagers and adults, you have to know who you're talking to because you may get something you don't want. So I think the best thing for people to do is, you know, if you have a forum, talk about fairness and talk about all people are should be created equal, as the Declaration of Independence said. If we do that, I think it would help. But you know, the two paradigms I use are two young ladies. They grew up in a affluent, all-white community. They had no contact with African Americans and other minority groups, and though that was their reality. And though when they got connected with the Ku Klux Klan, they didn't like the rhetoric because their parents would not dare use the language they were using, but they didn't condemn it. And I think what I was the point I was making is, if someone is, particularly friends, if you have friends do that, you need to tell them that we all are the same. I think God created us all the same. We are the ones who are making a difference. And I think the reasons that I gave has something to do with that, because the insecure person is going to find somebody or something that they can look down on. And we do it within the African American race. In my time, if children's parents were teachers or professionals, they thought they were better than other blacks who were not. And many blacks who were not professionals made more money than the professional people did, because the white-collar people just recently began to make money. Teachers, bankers, if you weren't a vice president, you make no money. But if you worked for General Motors, a steel company, or energy company, you had unionized, you were making $20, $30 an hour. That's where the middle class got started. But, and it's, as I say, it's the residual of slavery, the difference between the house hands and the field hands. And that's how they come up. And so, you know, if I catch African American do it, I tell them, don't do that, that's wrong. If a white person called you that, what would you do? And I would do that.
Oh, when I think of hate, I just think of the media just loving to stir things up constantly. They'll take the simplest thing and put a twist on it and make it appear to be totally different from what was maybe intended, you know. I don't remember them doing that so much in the past.
They criticized President Obama for everything he said.
Yeah, they did.
He criticized him a great deal. But the President Trump emboldens that because, you know, they caught him on media last night and were saying, when he's talking about Mexico paying for the wall. And, you know, he said he didn't say it, but he did. And I mean, there's no way you could twist that. He said that they were going to pay for it. And he also said with the new agreement for NAFTA, there was some clause in there, but there's nothing in there. And so he says that, and he does it to himself. He shouldn't do that, I think.
But, you know, Kennedy was protected. We're fighting all this stuff about JFK now, but
well,
none of that came out.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it really came out with President Clinton and Monica. I mean, I'm a man. We didn't discuss that. No. We didn't discuss that. And we probably should have. You know, if I had friends who were doing some things wrong, I would tell them about it. Because I would talk to you. If you're a friend, you tell a person not only what they're doing good, but what they're doing is not good. But it's maybe more risky today because you don't know where people are.
Yeah, I taught in an alternative school for 10 years.
Can you talk into the mic?
I taught in an alternative school for 10 years with a lot of inner city, with a lot of inner city black young men. So down the hall is a black teacher I want to emulate. In the classroom, they're just some really broken kids. So I think a lot of times conversation, talking about blacks as though they're this monolithic group, makes the discussion kind of irrelevant, because you're not talking about middle class blacks or upper or I should say, you know, very successful blacks, or, you know, a lot of times, you know, we're talking about inner city blacks, and that's the problem a lot of times. And I think a lot of times whites perceive inner city blacks as somehow representative of blacks, and it certainly isn't. So in the white community, we've got WASP, we've got Italians, we've got rednecks, we've got skinheads. We talk about ourselves in little pockets, but it's as though, I think, in conversations about blacks, we talk about blacks as they're somehow a monolithic unit. And I think that makes it difficult to have a meaningful conversation. If you can comment on that.
Well,
or is it? Am I seeing things?
I mean, you know, you're right. That's why I made a statement earlier that I was taught that I need to look at individuals. Don't judge a whole demographic group based on what some people are doing is wrong. I truly believe that God, in demographic groups, we have probably an equal number of people who think right and who think wrong, and in between. And I think what you're saying is we should try to focus on a person's conscience. And I've had some experience with that on my job as a young Jewish guy that worked there, and he picked up an article about African American middle class moving out of the community. And they had said we should be doing some things to help them, because when the middle class move out of the community, there are no models for them to emulate. And all
but on the other hand, that middle class father, that middle class couple wants to get their kids as far away from those other kids as possible because they're smart.
Well, I mean,
so
what you're saying.
Doesn't mean that it may mean that they just that there's real.
No, they leave the middle class leave Dallas and go to the southern or the northern suburbs for the same reason whites do. Now, I proved that when I started teaching at junior college in 95, 96. At Cedar Valley was about an equal split between whites and blacks. You got more Latinos coming in right now, and very few whites. But I would ask them that question. I'd ask first the whites. So we want to leave ignorant people. We want to go where we have better schools, and not so much crime and all that kind of stuff. Then I asked the black students who were living in those communities. Right now, the majority in all those southern communities, Lancaster, DeSoto, Duncanfield, and Cedar Hill, not quite yet in Red Oak, but moving in that direction. But as I indicated earlier, one of the problems we have in the African American race is the residual from the house hands and the field hands. The house hands in most cases were a black woman and a white man children. Mm-hmm. And they totally emulated the white culture. And when schools were created for blacks, in that environment, if the slave owner's wife had a daughter or a son, and then the slave house hand had a daughter or son, they would play together until they were about 12 years old. And they would teach. That's how they learned to read, because if the little white girl could read, she would teach the black girl. The little white. That's how. So when they had schools, they were the ones who could go. The rest of us, it was illegal to teach us to read. And so they carried that where they were. I mean, when I was at Prairie View in 56 and 60, they taught us to be middle class. And there's nothing wrong with being middle class. But we got to have some compassion, in which I try to tell my children they didn't have the same situation that people that they didn't have to worry about getting a scholarship. You know, my wife and I were in school without scholarship. One got a partial scholarship because she was an honor student. But yeah, we have a lot of the problems. The names that African Americans would call whites, we didn't create them. We heard white people use them. That's how we got it.
Mine is not so much of a question as it is a comment. And from what I'm hearing in this room, this room to me represents what is wrong with America. and that is we all have to identify another. We all have to have an other. Whether, whatever whatever racial group you're in, you have to have an other. And I think that I have a problem with the premise of hate will destroy our democracy. I don't think that hate will destroy our democracy. I think silence will destroy our democracy. I mean, it's okay, and I agree with you, but it's not emphasized very much, that it's okay to say, oh, I did not vote for Trump, or I don't agree with what Trump is doing. But I think that we have to be honest with ourselves and say, what did I do to promote this? And until then, you can't move forward. You cannot move forward. You cannot have reconciliation without admission that you did something wrong. You either said, I'll go along with it because I'll get this, I'll do that, or I'll get this for my children, I'll get this for my grandchildren. Something had to propel this. Yes, he is an evil, vile man, but he's a man.
Yeah, right.
And you got to explain that to me. He's a man. I think some of us men want to know what you mean.
He has to be promoted. He has to be promoted. He has to be propelled by something. He didn't get where he is.
Daddy, money.
Well, who gave him the money?
Daddy.
Who gave him? Who gave him the power? Who relinquished that to him? No. I don't think it was the billionaire that did it. No, and I don't think that it. Why do we always have to have another? Why we have to look within us. If we're going to cure us, we are going to have to do it.
That's what I said.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I'm not saying that I disagree.
Did you want to comment further on what you said before?
I think we have a propensity to go along to be along, but that's what I was saying we don't need to do. I would like to deal with, the people I hate. If they ever decide that they're going to move consistent with their hate, that's going to create.
It always has to be a they. Why can't it be we?
Well,
why can't we reconcile ourselves?
We can.
If you can't reconcile yourself to each other, you can't move forward.
If we can't talk together with people that's different from us and
If
find common ground.
If you stop saying other and start saying we.
I did use
we.
We have to talk to be able to communicate. Because if we can't communicate, we really don't truly understand each other. And we have to communicate. Medrick and his wife and my wife, we were a Republican family. They happen to be moderate Republicans, but even if they were not, we learned something from each other. And we find out that we basically want the same thing. And if we start from that premise, then maybe we can reach some reconciliation.
Well, I don't think that it's hate that will destroy our democracy. I think it's we will destroy it.
Well, that's what I said. That's what I said. We will destroy it because people get turned off, they don't vote. And when we do that, we are losing democracy by default. People who hate, if they want an all-white America, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So
all that I'm saying is that I know black people in my family or in my communications with other black people who hate certain groups just as much as other groups hate.
Well, I pointed out between educated blacks and ones that didn't go to college.
No. I mean, it's not just black and white.
I know. There are blacks that hate whites.
Well, and there are blacks who hate other people too.
Yeah, blacks that hate blacks.
No, and blacks who hate other people too. Blacks who hate Asians, blacks who hate Hispanics.
Yeah.
blacks who hate Muslims, anybody, we have a propensity to identify the other.
Yeah, we don't want to face
And
reality.
until we come together and say we, that's when we're going to move forward. Not by division, we divide ourselves.
Okay, well, you know, the Democratic Party added gay rights to their platform in 1972. The Republicans are still fighting gay rights. And so I want to challenge the use of the word hate in certain situations, because I do not hate Republicans. I simply want to defeat them because I do not like their bigotry. And I want you to explain to me if I have a reasonable and principled position to support everyone, regardless of their ethnicity or their religion or whatever. As my mother said, be thankful for the things we have in common and enjoy the differences. And when people want to deny that, I don't have to hate them to want to defeat them. And so I'd like for you to talk about this idea of hate, because I don't believe that I hate them.
Well, there are people that don't hate. I don't think I hate anyone. I don't think I hate anyone. I indicated earlier that I'm somewhat of a religious person. My faith is very important to me. And the Bible said I must love everybody. Now, it doesn't mean that I have to love their sin. But
Well,
as
I
an
get told all the
individual,
time that I hate somebody because I refuse to engage in them on their bigotry. And that's what I'm talking about.
well, I thought you dealt with that pretty evenly, say that you don't hate nobody, but you don't hate Republicans,
But I get accused of hating them by them, and they say, oh, well, you are really someone who is inclusive because you don't want to include me.
Yeah.
You see, and so I want to hear more about that, because that I think that's because I think that I think it's a rational position for me to take, that I want to defeat people that are against equal human and civil rights, that are against equal justice, against proper health care, against proper education, and so on.
Well, that's the same way I feel.
And
Right.
kindergarten.
Right.
That's the same
But
way I
don't you
feel.
get accused of hating them when you
Well,
say that?
some people put everybody in the Democratic group in the same box,
Right.
and so they infer that. They may not say it. A long time ago, they said the guys be in the service said, down at the shop, my best friend is black, and but I didn't try to push back. If it was his best friend, that was his decision, not mine. I didn't judge him.
Right.
But that's what I said. We've got to support everybody. Say that everybody should be treated the same, regardless of who they are. That's what I believe, and that's what I'm arguing that we need to do. But some people do hate, and it's transmitted into action, and they kill people.
Right.
Okay. Would you agree that a lot of problems in this country has come about because of the emasculation of the men in this country, of all races?
What do you mean by it? I don't be certain I understand the big word emasculation. Okay, you want to...
And also, actually, the loss of the relative status of the male in society, especially the white male.
Kelly.
John, I expect you the last person to say that. I know, I hear it. Everything comes up is the white man, and all that.
The reason why I ask this is because this explains a lot of this rise on this white male hate groups, actually.
Well,
because of the loss of relative economic position.
Yeah, that's when Bernie Sanders ran as Democrat in 2016.
John, respectfully, I think you're confusing emasculation with white male privilege.
Maybe that is.
No, it's the same. It's the same,
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Okay. Let me try to get off and answer this where I'm having to do too good and answer the last two questions. I think
He didn't get to eat.
it's people some people, they do research, they look at things, and I don't know whether they're empirical or whether they go into it with an opinion and come out with something. White men, but all men really, since '64, they worked in manufacturing industry, was unionized, they made good money. They may have a strike, but they work all the time. And a report came out in early 2016 that the group of people who had the highest mortality rate in the Democratic group was white men between the age of 35 and 40 something. And the reason was the mills, the jobs were outsourced and factories were closed. My brother, younger brother, he worked for Armco Steel. They closed the factory. They trained him a skill. Out of high school, he went there and did a little test. They trained him a skill, and he made more money than I did. And they closed the mill, and it was closed about 10 years, and then someone else got it and opened it up, and he went to work there, and then he closed it again. So my point was that there were women who were working in that situation. And I think maybe men, period, have not been fair. And among African Americans, a huge number of African women graduate more than African American men. But right now, white women are graduating at a higher ratio with white men. Yeah. And that's going to bring about a change. And I hope they don't try to get revenge against us, but that may be what happened. But I think that's how I got there. And because white men are quick, let's not point out about reverse discrimination. And for years, 100 years after the Civil War, it was on certain type of jobs African Americans get. And I lived through it. I worked in a warehouse. The only thing I could do was drive a truck and load boxcars and trucks. That was all I could do, regardless of what my skills were. But so I think some of it is the residual of that, the white man being in control and dominating, and some people pushing back. But yeah, that's what I think. This gentleman that
no, go ahead.
Go ahead, you go ahead.
No, ask your question.
I would like to, Calvin, ask, go to something very basic. We as black people were brought over to this country, very brutally brought over. And of course we were slaves and had to do all kinds of ungodly things just to survive. And I guess I have wrestled with this question throughout my years of living, the origin of hate. We were the victims, yet we are the hated people. We did very little. Of course, we did some uprising, Nat Turner and those people, to try to free ourselves, who would not, but certainly we did not ever have any great uprising. The ones that we had were put down quite quickly, to make someone hate as viciously as we as African Americans are hated today, to the point that people will suffer themselves if they can see a black person underneath. I guess my question is, and this is probably, you can't answer this question, but what is the origin of hate, and what is the difference between hate and racism? And it's such a broad something that I don't think that there is an answer, but I just wanted to throw it out therefore thought. What is the origin of hate? Why does hate exist? And let's face it, the African Americans are in the hierarchy. We are the ones that, in my opinion, are most hated, most, the Jim Crow laws, all those things were done. One last thing, I'm from a little town in northeast Texas, and when a Latino family moved into it when I was young, when they moved into that little town, they were sent to the white school. We had a black, colored school and a white school, and they were elevated to the white schools versus going to the black school. And I don't expect you to give an answer for that, but those are just some things to thought.
Well, I dealt with what I call the cause of the hate. And that's pretty much where it is people are taught to hate. Some people are taught to hate other people as children. And then they teach it to their children. And it may be based on reality. I mean, like you said, African Americans in the United States, we don't have the leverage to hurt nobody.
No, not at all.
Because we don't control the government.
Nothing.
And we don't control the army. We can't. But, you know, we do hate, but we don't, and some of us act on it. And that's why a large number of some of us in prison. But people have to, if you don't feel secure in yourself, you got to see somebody that you think is less than you. And if you do that long enough, you know, and people talk about they're taking the jobs or they're affirmative action and all that kind of stuff. A lot of things that reason people hate people is it don't make no sense, but they hate anyway. I just really think if people just think logically, why should one person think that they're better than another person? God created us all. He gives some of us, made us smart, some not so smart, and all between. But that don't, as a human being, we deserve to be treated the same as everybody else. And so that's kind of the way I see it. And, you know, I have just about the bigger problem is the stuff that goes on between blacks, middle class, and the working class.
How about light skin, black and dark blacks?
Yeah. I mean, I had some of that's kind of in my genetics. So all of my uncles in my father's family married light-skinned women, except one, and she passed the brown bag test. So I don't know. My wife was, she passed the brown bag test, but I liked her because she seemed to be everything that I wanted in a wife.
Regardless of color.
That's what I was at that point. But I even teased my uncles about why they do that. But I think it's because my grandmother, she was, had a lot of American Indian in her. And her father was very successful. And my older sister looked just like her, and her perception is somewhat like grandmother's. But they both were good people. But I think it's ignorance for why people are ignorant. I think that's the biggest cause, ignorance. The gentleman back there, you go and trap me this time?
I'm doing my best. My grandmother told my father to bring home a nice Italian girl. My mother told me to bring home a nice Catholic girl. My daughter, she's dated the whole rainbow. But truthfully, I'd like her to be heterosexual and give me some grandchildren that have the same culture, that celebrate Christmas and look something like me. You see that as being any of these as being racist?
I don't think you wanted more for yours than what I wanted for mine. I told my daughters if they were educated, and I made sure sacrifice to be educated. I didn't want them to marry a man that wasn't educated. So I may have been just because I was concerned about their economic welfare. I didn't tell them to hate people or nothing like that. I just said, you need to make a good decision. But the problem is, Edward and I, he has a daughter and I have two. And we talk about it because I only have one married. My son's not married, he's 55. He looks like me, clone of me, and he's a good guy, but he just can't decide whether he finished college, been back to college, a veteran, everything he ought to be successful, but he works all the time. And so, I know we try to give our children the best advice we can. And,
but the preservation of your culture. I mean,
Yeah,
I like
want
to see your culture. You like to participate.
Yeah, I
in
just
grandchildren's culture.
I have one grandson, but he's by my daughter. So they one of them, the twins, you never know who they asked it for. She asked me if they married a guy and they had a son, do you think their husband would let his last name be Blewett? So she was really looking out. They want to look out for Dad. And I said, I don't think so. I don't think so. And then she had a son, and my name is nowhere in his name, but I wanted that, but maybe it's not for me. I wanted my son to have children, get married and have children. He didn't do it, but they have, just like I didn't make all the decisions like my parents wanted me to when it came to things like that. I think when you marry, you ought to marry who you love. And that's what you use, not what dad is, but who you love. And but I think most parents try to do the best they can. I wouldn't call you a racist for that, because I'm not calling myself a racist. I was doing the same thing.
I have a question about that.
Okay, speak as well as you can into the mic there, so we get a little volume.
No, I can hear you.
Speak up. Speak
you
up.
You say that you would like your daughter to bring you a nice Catholic.
I would like my grandchildren.
Yeah.
I would like grandchildren. I'd like to share a culture with them.
The question is, what would you feel or what would you do if she brought you something else?
I have no choice. I'll have to love them as a son.
Because that's where you will see if it's sacred or not if you just desire something.
Well, my daughter married a white man, a German. But I love my daughter. I'm going to love her whatever.
Yeah, but that's when you can ask yourself a question.
Yeah, but the reason I did is because, I think the person ought to marry who they love. And that's kind of the way I would want. But I did want to have my legacy. I wanted my son, because he'd be Blewett. This is Cameron.
He blew it. He blew it.
Yeah, he did.
One thing I wanted to mention, and related to what you said probably, and a little bit what he said, are these problems related to the ways American society is organized in communities? Because European countries don't have the same type of problems. Every individual is an individual. He's not rejected or sent back to a community.
Well,
so it might make a difference.
Well,
and I just want to finish with a personal thing that happened to me, because I'm European culture. I went to the doctor and I saw that on my file they wrote that I was Hispanic. And there might be problems.
Right up to your mouth.
And so I said, well, you should correct this, I'm not Hispanic. I don't know if it has a meaning, but I'm not. So she said, so what are you? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I am. And I think that there's a big difference between the U.S., where you have to be someone connected to a group, rather than just a human being. That can answer the question. I don't know what I asked.
Well, I think one of the things, the people that came from Europe to the United States was really rebelling against some conditions, religion, government, and another thing. So but the ironic thing is when they came to the United States, they created the same kind of system. Same kind of system. So I don't know. I really think people learn from their parents to think or believe what they think and believe. And I you know, I think the parents should have an impact, but I would not try to train my children. Something that would hurt them or create problems for them, because I think they need to respect everybody.
Calvin, how much did your military service play into your feelings on these matters? Everybody bleeds red, as far as I know. I mean, so far nobody's gone in and bled green yet. So,
well, my military had a great influence. You got to understand how the world was in 1960. I had absolutely no connection with a white young man my age when I went north. And I heard a lot about Mississippi, Alabama. My block, when I got to Fort Hood, my top bunkmate was from Mississippi, named Blackledge. And I tell you, it was hard. I mean, it's just as hard for him, but all of us that was about the first half of the alphabet, when they got to half it was C, wasn't that many people. So we got KP, guard duty, we got all things. So we spent a lot of time together. And I really thought we had worked through it, and we went there about 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas. And they gave us 2 weeks leave for Christmas. And this guy from Louisiana, we'd been in bivouac and all that stuff together. And we got to, and the Fort Hood provided transportation from Fort Hood to Waco. And he sat on the front, the buses was integrated then. So he sat on the front seat, and I sat beside him, and he moved. So I don't know. Another thing I learned when I got to Germany, you know, I thought everybody from the north and the east and the west was okay. But my best friends were from the south. The southern white fellas. And because they were more friendly. So that's my experience. It had a major revelation. The Army had a major revelation. I got to go to Europe, got to see other people. As a political science major, I got to watch the German government and all that stuff. So it was quite helpful.
I had a good friend, very intelligent fellow, and he said the thing that really turned him off with politics was the name calling. And the media really plays it up, and it's very unfortunate to say really hateful names about people. And without justification, really.
Well, I think the media more or less quote what people say. They sometimes may bend it a little bit, but that's what they do. And I made an earlier report on demonization, and that's politics. That shouldn't be that way. They demonize. That's how they win. Yeah. And so that's why the Southern politicians did what they did, because they were winning. They wanted to be in office.
I'd like to ask this group, if you would raise your hand, if you know of someone who hates someone else.
If I know of someone? Yeah, I know of someone.
You know
I
someone.
know of someone,
Okay,
yeah.
you know a personal, no, I don't
Yeah,
mean
but
a
now you need to
politician.
direct
No, I mean
questions
someone that
to
you
the...
personally know. You know,
Yeah,
among your
but-
friends, among your relatives. Okay.
Try to direct that as a question to the
Okay,
speaker, though.
it's a pretty small minority. I'm sorry. It bothers me to have this drummed into us that we're all hating each other. And I see kindness every time I go to the store. I see people who are one color helping people another color. You know? And let's emphasize that instead of just, and it doesn't do any good to cause, I did not vote for Mr. Trump. Actually, I voted for Ms. Clinton. I knew she had used the word deplorable, but I hadn't seen her. And I saw the video of when she called people a basket full of deplorables, and I thought, oh my word. It was so ugly that what she was saying. And anyway, I'm just telling you, when I go to my church group, I don't hear anybody bemoaning the fact that someone of a different race got ahead of them or doing well. We're all happy. When Matt has a dozen, he has a big family, a bunch of cousins too. We went there right after the election. Nobody was bemoaning the fact that some other group was getting ahead and they weren't. Every time I hear when that subject would come up, it's always, hey, good, you know?
But I hope I didn't infer that everybody hate people. Because, as I indicated earlier, a lot of white people voted for President Obama If
I
he
did.
had not, he would not have won.
Exactly.
And that gave me, that's the hope that when I said reasonable people, if we get together and understand each other, we can bring about change.
Yeah, I voted for Obama. But, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, last question. I think that is the last question, right? Hopefully. Okay, now we move on to the rebuttal. Who wants to be executed first?
Now it's your turn to talk, so you got 5 minutes to talk to.
John, keep the clock on this gentleman here. He
Yeah.
don't overrun.
Well, I didn't get my other stuff in. I might have to squeeze it all in. Dearly beloved, I hate. Oh, sorry about that.
You hate the microphone?
Yeah.
Keep it a
We
little.
live in interesting times.
Good.
I don't know.
Yeah, because we found it, this lady found it on the floor.
Okay, are we done? Okay, all right.
Because of the internet. So, this comes up all the time. I really thought Calvin once again reiterated that we have so much in common. I mean, me and him, the way we think and our attitude. However, I have a different source of information, so I would have some points of disagreement. Now, when I said I hate, if you think about that for a second, that's kind of an ambiguous, kind of funny thing. How can you hate? You're hating something you hate. So it brings a deeper question. Shall we define hate more narrowly? And when you try to do that, it's a little slippery. It's like love. It's like peace. So I think let's start from the edges maybe. What do we agree on? What is hate? Well, anybody got a definition for hate for me out there?
I do, but that'll be my 5 minutes.
When you detest something, that means nothing. I mean, that's just one word with the other. Sorry. I had an answer for that. Something we.
I have an answer, but it'll take my 5 minutes.
Oh,
so.
Anyways, so we need to think about the deeper ramifications because I think we got a little bit off into the definition of hate that the media has been giving us. Definition of hate is opposing progressive agenda. And I think we're getting a little bit of that today. But not all that. You know, if we had more people like Calvin and me, of course, we would have a more peaceful world. But there's a lot of people, and I would say a lot of young, ignorant people that are making this an issue, a problem. So hate is become a code word. We got something called hate speech now, which is not a really illegal thing. And pretty much it comes down to, if you're a powerful political bloc, you can define something as hate speech. And that's a tool. So hate, I know what we can do, all agree on, I hope. Let's see if anybody disagrees, tell me. Hate, I'm trying to get a definition for us. Hate is an emotion. Can we start with that? Everybody agree with that?
Sure.
Okay, hate is an emotion. So we need emotions or else we don't move, we're not alive. On the other hand, when we come to these bigger issues, we want to be very rational, and emotion often clouds our right thinking about that. So hate, in my older age, I hate less things. I don't know if I ever really felt too much for that hate stuff, you know, prolonged hate. Everything has a purpose in life, you know. But hate and revulsion relate to fear. You brought that up too. But fear and hate, they have two different meanings. There is a definite difference in that meaning. And revulsion seems to have fear in it. But you can hate something when you're still not really that scared of it. So it's kind of cloudy. Anyway, so the main point, getting to the point of disagreement, I think we are being led to overemphasize the white hate groups. I don't see that much of that. I think you didn't even mention the black hate groups, which are much more outspoken, much more radical. And the reason I say we're in a interesting time is because of the internet. So I can turn on the internet and I just watch these speeches, and this auditorium is full of black people, and this guy on the stage would be like screaming, just kill them all, kill their babies, kill the white, just on and on and on and on. And you know, it's more extreme than the white hate groups, which I don't really see too much of, but they're not that big, and the media's promoting this. There's a bigger agenda, so we don't want to be played. So, you know, when we pull into emotion like hate, we're being played. Hate and fear, we get pulled into all kinds of things, and you know, your politicians like Clinton and Trump and all of them, they use our emotions, and we're in a time of what's that mean?
I mean 6 minutes already.
I'm already 6 minutes.
Yeah, unfortunately.
All right. Oklahoma City is a good example. I can leave with this. Oklahoma City was a complete false flag. I know some of you write down notes. Please write this down. This is the one thing. OKC in plain sight. Spelled plain like an airplane. OKC in plain sight. It just shows you it's 4 minutes long. 4 minutes. Nobody telling you anything. Just mainstream reports of what really happened that day. It's totally a lie. And that was one of your points that you assumed was real. And so we come from different information. Anyway, thank you.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. You know, Calvin, we hear a lot of people say we need to have a conversation about race. And most of the time it's meant that white people need to sit down and listen to the lecture. So I'll give you a white point of view, which you don't often hear. And that is that, you know, black people think all white people oppress us. I say that. Not all black people think that, but a lot of them do. And they forget the fact that 2/3 of the country fought the Civil War, set black people free. 500,000 Union troops died for the freedom of black people. And they don't think about that. They think about, oh well, here's the South. And like you say, the South was not entirely about slavery. You know, there were some big slaveholders there that had a lot to lose economically, but most of them that fought, that was about states' rights. And you know, there may have been some aspect to that, but you know, that's water under the bridge, and that was a long, long time ago. And I grew up in South Texas, and you know, I know what you're talking about, but I didn't see hate for black people. What I saw was disrespect and holding back. You know, it wasn't, you didn't see people that said, well, I hate so-and-so because he's a certain color. You know, there were friendships there, just like there are today. It's just that there was disrespect. And I think that the Civil Rights Act and affirmative action was a great thing. Integration was a great thing because it exposed a lot of people like me, people like you, just like the Army exposed you, people like me. And that is a good thing because we understand each other a lot better. But, you know, affirmative action went on, and somewhere it got out of control. We started talking about, well, we got to think about disparity because that's an indication that affirmative action is not being practiced and that equal opportunity is not being given. And it came to the point where now what you see is blatant discrimination on the basis of race to further this idea of diversity. You see Harvard discriminating against Asian students because, well, we got too many Asians. You know, if you're an individual person, you know, we all are, you apply to Harvard and you think you're going to be considered on your merits, and they say, well, we're not taking you because of the color of your skin. You know, that's wrong. It's just as wrong now as it was 100 years ago. And you may not agree with that, but you know, that's the way that I see it. But the good news is that we're getting over it. You know, I know that I have a different attitude now than I did when I was a teenager, because, you know, like you say, that's planted in your mind. And
and you know, over the years, I've known a lot of really outstanding people whose skin color was different than mine. As far as that goes, their religion different than mine, and I've learned from that. And you know, I have to fight this idea of us and them. But I was at a meeting over in Hamilton Park one time, and everybody there was black. And there was a lady there, she was running for Congress, and she was up there talking about those people do this and those people do that, and you can't trust those people. Well, I was those people in that audience. And at the end of it, I went up and I said, you know, you have to stop talking about that, because if you're going to run for Congress, most of your constituents are going to be white. And she says, oh, I didn't mean to offend you. And I said, I wasn't offended. I'm just telling you that if you're going to win, you can't be talking like that. And so, you know, the politicians are getting smarter now. They don't overtly say things like that. But there is a movement in this country, mostly funneled by the mainstream media, of trying to divide us. You know, anything somebody says, they try to sensationalize it. There's always outrage. There's always somebody on one side or the other who's outraged by it. And, you know, in my view, I see that as mostly Democrats who are outraged. You know, I see Maxine Waters telling people, you know, you go out and you harass these people that work in the Trump administration. You see them in a restaurant, you know, you just shout them down and make them leave and that sort of thing. Well, you know, I see that as hate. It may just be political opportunism, I don't know. But you see those things, but there's plenty to go around in terms of blame. But the other thing is that there's a lot of this about disparity. I read an article in the Morning News, and they were talking about how black people smoke more than white people, and because of that they have more lung cancer. And they said that's an inequity. And I'm thinking, you do it to yourself, how's it an inequity? But, you know, they're torturing the logic there to try to make everything a racial situation when it really got nothing to do with it. And, you know, I see a lot of poverty in the black community, but at the same time I see a lot of children in the black community that don't have fathers in their home. And to me, you know, that probably has more to do with them living in poverty than anything else that could happen. And, you know, there's some things that need to change. You know, like the lady said, we all need to own up to it. We all need to change ourselves. And unfortunately, when somebody of my color tells people, you need to change, they're not going to hear that. You know, you're a lot more credible in saying that than I am. But I think that that black people that know better about how we ought to live our lives and how we ought to be Christians need to be speaking up about that. Maybe you do. I don't know. But you know, you're absolutely dead on in that we have to love each other, and we have to get along with each other and respect each other. And you know, the good news is that it is getting better. We don't live in the world we read about. You know, most of us are far different than what we're depicted as on television. And I know that my children are better people than I am in terms of disregarding race, and my grandchildren are pretty much unconscious of it. So, you know, there is hope that one of these days we'll achieve Martin Luther King's dream of judging ourselves by the contents of our heart.
Ready, set, go. I didn't like Obama because he didn't arrest any bankers. He put more journalists in jail than anybody else. He destroyed the country of Libya, and it was a secular, prosperous country, and I thought his health care program was not very well done. I can do that without being racist. I can dislike Obama without being racist. Then I can say I like Trump for some reasons, but I don't have to be a racist to like Trump, because there's real things I like about him. In conjunction with this young lady, I was in the construction industry for 10 years. I had 2 black bosses back then. That was a long time ago. I was a teacher for 10 years. Virtually all my bosses, all the time during those 10 years, were black. And I worked at Home Depot for 26 years, and, you know, just, I don't know, half of my bosses are black, and maybe more, certainly maybe 75% if we include all the minorities. And you know, I'm a white guy. I get to sit with white people, and I just don't hear the racism with the people I fly with. So there was something else, but I missed it. And the last thing, and I think this may be my most important point. You know, my grandparents worked hard. Both of them, all my grandparents, all four of them worked hard. My aunts worked hard. My uncles worked hard. My cousins have worked hard. I mean, I just come from this family where everybody worked hard, saved their pennies, put most of their money towards their kids. And somehow I'm getting this message that somehow I'm supposed to apologize for being white. And what that does is it makes me hate. It makes me hate. I want to tell the blacks, I'm going to go find some black guy and just tell them, you know, screw you. But, you know, I catch myself. And I realize that, you know, I'm not sure I'm not falling for the trap. And so I don't fall for it, though. But I'm 65 years old. And, you know, I've been had a few times, but I'm not had this time. But, you know, some younger guy might be thinking, you know, my dad, my mom, my uncles, my aunts, you know, it's dangerous to have that kind of thing floating around. Thank you.
Well, Calvin, I suppose the biggest disagreement I have with you is to call this country a democracy, actually. I don't see much sign of it, actually. I think because most, there's a whole realm of people that have given up. That's why they don't vote. Okay, they see both parties really doing the same things, actually. The one disappointment of Obama, he really wasn't progressive enough, actually. I mean, he did not jail the bankers who should have been jailed and reform the whole system, and so on. So I suppose that's my biggest disagreement with you. As somebody who came from England 50 years ago, I've watched this country change. I do think there's been much more integration. I do see black and white people mixing together, and brown people. You know, everybody seems to get along. But what I do see amongst all races is tremendous poverty, actually, which is, and I see this almost on a weekly basis because I'm out there in real estate dealing with it. And really, it's quite, and in fact, the most impoverished family I've ever seen is a white family. It's amazing to see. Now, and, you know, for some white people, the only thing got going for them is their whiteness, actually. I mean, when you look at them and what they do and what they are, that's about it, actually. Now, I've said many times that, you know, I was in a rowing 8, and you win races when all 8 people are rowing in synchronism. And in fact, if you listen to the first cruise in the London Heather River, which is about 450 crews, the first 15 or so crews, you can hear them because you hear this crack, crack. And the last cruise, you hear they're completely out of synchronism. The problem in this country is, I think, politics. You know, really, as I say, there's no civility. I mean, you know, used to be, I believe, in the old days in America, there was civility. And there was people working across the aisle. But I think this climate, and in fact, actually, as you know, I worked in Xerox, and in our division, we had our ups and downs, and the head of it says, look, an unprosperous company is a very unhappy company. And when you're doing well, everybody, you know, gets along and is pretty happy. Well, America hasn't paid its way in the world for what, 40 years?
And you can see the country is becoming more and more unhappy. And a lot of it is just pure economic mismanagement, really. To a degree that I find surprising, actually. As if you couldn't know. I mean, in fact, you know, the theory of capitalism as it's preached, you know, okay, we're going to pay the working people less and less. Well, how on earth are they going to buy things if they're not, you know, earning? I mean, and also let's give away our technology to China. I mean, it's insanity, and it's been done by these politicians of all parties. Actually, they all went along with it, and this is why I think the country is unhappy because it is not an economic success actually, and I think it's affecting everybody, and so I think everyone here, they know something's wrong. They have no plan to fix it. Certainly, I've never heard a decent plan out of any lunatics up there in Washington. I certainly couldn't vote for any of them. And this, by the way, the same goes for England too. The same processes has gone. The bankers over there are worse than the guys in Wall Street. I mean, they're basically criminals, actually, licensed criminals. Okay, in the city of London, which is the banking district. I mean, money laundering, tax evasion. You know, it's epidemic. For the same reason. No, a country, you know, like a family that sticks together is a successful family. And those that, you know, don't stick together, you know, you have strife and arguments and so on and so forth. You know, it's natural. I think you have tribalism, you know, where one tribe killed. You read the Old Testament, you know, nothing but wars and killings and so forth. I mean, if any testament to murder and mayhem, it's the Old Testament, what went on. So I think, actually, yes, somehow, as the guy in Los Angeles said, we must learn to get along, actually, a lot better. I have no notion of how you do this. I do think it's cultural, though. I think it's cultural. I think that the leaders, and especially Trump, is extremely divisive. It's culturally rude, culturally crude, not somebody I could ever respect, whatever he does. And in fact, some of his views are actually correct. But the implementation, and the way he goes about it, like a bull in the china shop, you know, is just totally counterproductive. It achieves nothing. So we want people with, at the top, you know, who are not, I think, not politicians, per se, but come out of a different field, maybe psychologists and medical people, and maybe some physicists, actually, like your daughter and myself. So I think, you know, we must have a better mix, actually, because the country is in trouble. It can't go on as it's going. We've got this pseudo boom. We have all these pseudo booms. We're in one now, and the end point is in, you know, crash. That's where we're headed. So you know, unfortunately, like most people won't do, what they should do is look in the mirror. Start by examining yourself and say, well, what's wrong with me? What can I do as a person to person? But you know, I grew up in London, you know, which is very, very cosmopolitan, and you know, London kids get along actually. You know, you might be surprised to hear this, but when I grew up in London, there was no peer pressure. I mean, we had nothing, none of us. How could you lord it over somebody else? If you know, you're lucky to have a pair of shoes and food on the table, let alone worrying about being better than anybody else. You know, at least in, you know, where I came from. So, and when we got a bit of money, we're happy. But I don't see much real enjoyment and happiness, really. I see a lot of anger, actually, amongst people. They really are angry what's going on. And I don't blame them. I understand why they're angry. And I think that the politicians never address this. Really, to say it's a democracy, it isn't. Because these people in Washington do not care about the ordinary people. And I defy anybody here to tell me they do. They don't. You know, and unless you have a group of people that really cares about the country, that has a plan, okay, that we could all respect it, I think this disastrous thing will keep going, and which I'm unhappy to see. 5 minutes are up.
Okay, someone going to time me now since I've been so nice to time everyone else? Okay.
I'll do it, John.
I've often joked that if the media did their job, I wouldn't have one. Okay, are we ready to go? Give me a 5, 4, 3, 2. I've often joked that if the media did their job, I wouldn't have one. That's actually half true, because I've been an event videographer for many years, and I end up covering those subjects that the media is not covering or covering wrong. The media is inflaming racism in this country, and they've been doing it for decades. If we dialed it back 30 years and we had the media we had 30 years ago, I think this country would be enjoying racial peace in this country. I think we'd be getting along much better. In the Jewish tradition, they have a phrase. It's called Lashon Hara, and that's evil speaking about another. And the best rabbis equate this with being equal to murder, because if you murder someone's image, you have essentially murdered them. I would put it to you that many here, without any filter, accept everything the media says about Donald Trump. And they accept the judgments, the opinions that the media puts forward. Now, what's going on with the media? Why are they presenting it from that angle? We've had lousy presidents before. I mean, this is no exception. I can't find any conservative who's trying to say Trump's perfect. None of the conservatives I know are saying Trump's perfect. But what you have is you have this 24/7 continual stream of anti-Trump rhetoric. I thought Dr. Butler was going to be speaking tonight, so I was all online preparing to take on the atheist, and then I actually looked at the schedule. And I ended up searching up one thing, a book I'd read many years ago now, called Capitol Hill in Black and White. And this was the candid expose of a chauffeur and I guess Butler to the Senate, who was talking about the corruption of our leaders in Washington and how absolutely across the board they were corrupt and they were all sleeping with everybody, and that it was if the American people really knew, we'd be kicking them all out. Maybe this is the resistance, because Trump's not a part of that. Trump came in as an outsider, not quite bought off in exactly the same way. I'm forgetting who was it? One of the former pundits, I'm trying to think who it was, who said that Trump's not a part of their secret society. He actually said that on national television. And was it Newt Gingrich? It might have been Gingrich who said that. Yeah. So you have an outsider coming in. This is JFK too. If you look at most of the things Trump says, and you look at the way JFK talked, there's not a whole lot of difference. Maybe Trump is a little more verbose and not quite as... he doesn't have as good speechwriters because he's not listening to his speechwriters. In fact, he's not listening to most of the people around him because so many of them are corrupt. Why are so many of these people fired? But see, that's not really the thing. I think that we need to look at ourselves in the mirror and see this image we're projecting. I mean, if you play your cards right, he's only going to be in there for 4 years. I think a lot of things the Democratic Party is doing are self-destructive because they're going after him with such a vengeance. It's going to get a backlash from the American people. It's going to cause you to lose another 4 years. And I don't know who's going to get in there, but it's not going to be who you want. So I think there's good reason for everybody to get along. I'm seeing things where I see that the media inflames, especially young blacks. They don't understand. They don't have the experience of life that some of us older cusses do. And so there's this young black man at a AutoZone right near here, and he thinks because the gal won't go out and test his car that she's being racist when she has a policy she's got to follow, and her other Hispanic employees out there already testing somebody or helping somebody. She can't leave the register. And he is so angry at her. He is sure she's being racist. I came in there, I said, you need to take it outside. And he's looking at me trying to assess who I am. I mean, am I off-duty cop? Am I former military? I'm being as hard-ass as I can because he's about ready to do something that he would be very sorry for. And so I waited around. Actually, she didn't get her relief for about probably at least 7 minutes. And so I stood out there outside, and he's just walking back and forth, just fuming. And finally, he gets in his car and he drives away. He wanted to do something because he was sure he had been racially discriminated there, and that was so far from the truth. It's ridiculous. Thanks.
I guess I'm the last one standing. So I want to thank our speaker for doing a great job here tonight. You got us all thinking, got us all talking. Whenever I look at this whole issue, whenever the economy goes bad, there's always a rise of the lunatic fringe. Remember that. And our economy has not been good. Irrespective of what we think, we still have a huge number of people out of work, and we still have a poverty in this country. We have a wide disparity in income, and we have problems. And we have to address it. We have to correct it. If we don't correct it, our whole society is going to go down in smoke. That's a real fact. I know someone brought up that both parties are pretty much the same today, and people aren't voting. And why are they not voting? Because they don't have anything to vote for, they think. And so that's part of the problem. But if you look at history, in 1938 they passed the Fair Labor Standards Act that reduced the work week from 60 to 40 hours, the work day from 10 to 8 hours. Today, we have 25 million people unemployed or underemployed today. This is insane. We have people who are not even on the unemployment list anymore. They've been off of it for years, and they're not getting jobs back, and we're hurting because of that. This is where a lot of this racial divide and all this stems from this, because you were asking what stems from it. It's wide disparity in the economy. So we have to address this. We have a Congress. We got the best Congress money can buy. That's one of our problems. The corporations control the Congress. We had laws in this country years ago where the antitrust laws that were designed to keep corporations from getting too big and designed to keep corporations in the country in that respect. But they figured out how to get around that. They became multinational. They leave the country. When they leave the country, they take the jobs with them. And when they take the jobs with them, they get somebody else employed overseas at cheaper labor. And then they ship everything back here, and we end up paying more for the product because we're paying for the transportation costs on top of everything else. And then we lose all the jobs, and we lose everything. And even the auto industry recently, they turn right around after all the government help. They turn around and they're closing plants, and they're going to ship the stuff overseas because they make more money that way. It's all about money, and it's all about corporate power. And corporations have, we put in laws for corporations. They only lasted 4 or 5 years, and they would no longer be a corporation. They would become extinct. And eventually now we have lifelong corporations. We have corporations that last forever. And they have more power than the government and the people. And this is not right. And our Congress is controlled by the corporations. That's a fact. And if they vote against the corporation, they're out of business. They beat them in the primary. They put somebody else in, and that's part of the problem. So what will Congress vote for to change this? in my view, they'll vote for free airtime the last 90 days of a federal election. They'll vote for that. Why? Because there's really no history of a challenger being an incumbent. It hasn't happened in this century. And if they put that in effect, then they would represent the people who do the electing, who they're supposed to represent. And then, because some challengers would beat some incumbents, and then everything would change. They would represent the people who do the electing instead of representing the people buying the vote in Washington. Then we could put tariffs on corporations such as Apple that's overseas. The tariff would be the difference in labor, environmental, transportation costs. And if they don't want to pay the tariff, produce it here. If they produce it here, they don't have to pay the tariff. You'll have some jobs, and you'll have corporations working here, and you can regulate them. And you'd have a better situation, a better economy. And then you might think about shortening the workday, because machines do replace people, and machines don't pay taxes. And if you ever look at, we're working longer hours than we ever did before. We have people working 2 or 3 jobs. It's insane, and they're making nothing. And this is a treadmill that we can't go on. We're going to destroy our country if we keep doing this. So, if we shorten the workday in this country, we'd have 25 million people back to work. We'd have more people working paying taxes. We'd have less people who are not working draining taxes. Our government get a twofold benefit of increased tax revenue, not raising taxes. This would be a better tomorrow. The rest of the world could follow. That's how the 8-hour day was established. That's how we go to a 6-hour day, or even a 4-day work week. They do that in Australia, I understand, 4-day work week. But if we went to that, we'd have more people working, and that's my view. I think that would transcend a lot of the problems we have in this country for race and everything else, because we are creating false issues to address real problems, and that's wrong. Anybody, I better shut up on my head and give this back to our speaker.
Thank everyone for their observations. Let's make a couple of more remarks. I agree. The big problem among marriage is suffering in the United States. 50% of everybody is not married, and among African Americans, it's catastrophic. Only 33% of us married, and that's caused a lot of the problems. Because my observation, since that's the only experience I've had, you need a man and a wife and a family. For children, they need both influences. And the other point someone made, if it had to be some good whites, African Americans would all been killed. Because we wasn't voting when they fought the Civil War. And so I recognize I don't put everybody in the same group. I recognize some people have good intention and are fair in summing up. So I see it that way. You talk about CNN and NBC. You have their liberal media, but Fox is just the opposite. And you look at Fox, you find them saying just the same kind of things that some said that the other networks say. I think the media is controlled by the people who buy the ads. That's how they make money. And they must be doing something to satisfy the people who buy the ad, otherwise they have to change. So that's some things. I know that a lot of what you say is true. Greed creates a lot of problems. Trying to focus on something that's not really the real issue also gets people off on something else, and then you can go and do what you want to do. And a lot of that happens in this country. We contend that we have a representative democracy. It's not a pure democracy. We elect people to represent us. So that's the kind of system we have. I'm hopefully that we can move beyond people are disliking other people for no particular reason. So that's about all I have. Thank you for the opportunity to make a presentation. I appreciate it.
That's it for tonight. You kick us out of here by 10:30, and our speakers here, we want to talk to them, but formal meeting is over. See you all next week, hopefully.
Medrick.